Okay, let's dive right into one of the most majestic and honestly mysterious scenes in the entire Bible. We're talking about God's throne room, as seen by the Apostle John in the book of Revelation. And right at the heart of it all is this group of figures that have puzzled people for 2,000 years.
So here's the big question we're tackling today. Who in the world are these 24 elders? They're sitting on thrones, literally circling the throne of God himself. Are they angels? Are they humans who've been glorified? Or are they something else entirely? Well, we're about to try and unlock this cosmic mystery.
And man, John gives us this incredible picture. 24 thrones, 24 elders. They've got these pure white garments on, and they're wearing golden crowns. Now, every single detail here is a clue. The white robes shout purity, and those gold crowns, that's all about royalty and victory. This tells us these aren't just bystanders. They have real status and authority in this heavenly court.
Look, we're not the first people to ask this question, not by a long shot. This has been a puzzle for centuries. But the cool thing is, if we start piecing together clues from the Old Testament, the New Testament, and even the world John lived in, a surprisingly clear picture starts to emerge. So let's start with the most popular theory out there. All right, so this first theory is probably the one you've heard before. It's the most common take on it all, that the 24 elders are human beings. But not just any humans. They're glorified saints, the righteous believers who now represent all of God's people from all of history. And the case for this is actually pretty strong. Those white garments and golden crowns, Jesus literally promises those exact things as rewards to believers who persevere, right there in the book of Revelation. And that number, 24? Well, a lot of people see this beautiful symbolism. You take the 12 tribes of Israel from the Old Testament, and you add the 12 apostles who founded the New Testament church, and what do you get? 24. It's a perfect symbol for the complete, unified family of God.
But here's where it gets tricky, because the Bible itself seems to pull us in two different directions. On one hand, you've got Exodus 24, where Moses and 70 times human elders go up Mount Sinai and actually see God. So there's a precedent for human elders in God's presence. But then you flip over to Isaiah 24, and the prophet says Yahweh will reign before his elders on his holy mountain. And there, it really sounds like he's talking about a heavenly, supernatural council. That's the tension we've got to work through.
So the human theory seems to check out, right? Well, not so fast. It's a solid theory, but it doesn't quite explain everything. There are a few key pieces of the puzzle, a few outliers, that point in a completely different and way more cosmic direction. Which leads us to theory number 2. What if they aren't human at all? What if these elders are actually supernatural beings, members of God's own divine council, his heavenly government? Now, this idea has some heavy-hitting evidence too. For starters, John's whole vision of the throne room in Revelation 4 is built on the vision in Daniel 7, and Daniel's vision is explicitly about a heavenly court, with thrones being set in place. Then you have that Isaiah passage again, which really does sound like a celestial council. But maybe the biggest clue is that later in Revelation, John sees a totally separate group, the souls of martyred humans, underneath the altar. So if they're down there, who are the 24 elders up on the thrones? They really seem to be two different groups. So what gives? We're left with this massive question. Do we have to pick a side? Are the elders glorified humans representing the family of God? Or are they the supernatural heavenly court? But what if that's a false choice? What if we've been asking the wrong question all along? You see, the New Testament writers did something absolutely stunning. They presented a vision that merges these two worlds together. Just listen to this from the book of Hebrews. It says that believers have already arrived at the heavenly Jerusalem, at an assembly that includes angels and the spirits of the righteous made perfect. It's like the line between the human and the celestial starts to get fuzzy. It's not one or the other. It's both together. And this idea actually goes way, way back to the book of Genesis. Remember when God promised Abraham his descendants would be like the stars of heaven? Well, in ancient thought, that wasn't just about a huge number. It was about destiny. The stars were often seen as symbols for divine beings, for the heavenly council. So the promise implied that Abraham's spiritual children were destined to one day be glorified and join that very council. So you see, it's not a choice between the two. It's both. The 24 elders represent the divine council, and they represent the ultimate destiny of glorified humans who will become part of that council. It's a snapshot of the future where God's redeemed people are fully brought into his heavenly government. But believe it or not, there is still one more layer to this whole thing.
And just when you think you've got it figured out, there's another layer. And honestly, this one is a total mind bender. It takes us from theology straight into ancient astronomy. It turns out John's vision isn't just a vision of a throne room, it's also a map of the cosmos.
A scholar named Bruce Molina pointed out some amazing clues. I mean, the throne is literally in the heavens. That sea of glass in front of it, it sounds just like how ancient people described the firmament, the dome of the sky. The 4 living creatures are connected to the 4 cardinal points of the zodiac, and the fact that the elders encircle the throne, that's a unique setup that looks just like the constellations rotating around the North Star. Which brings us back to that number, 24. I mean, why not 12 or 70, like the elders on Sinai? Why that specific number, 24?
Well, it wasn't random. In the ancient world, the day had been divided into 24 hours. The number 24 was literally the number of time. So by having 24 elders, John's vision is making a powerful statement. It's a symbol that this council, God's council, has authority over time itself, over all of history. And get this is the kicker. A writer from the 1st century, Diodorus Siculus, tells us that the ancient Babylonians actually identified 24 specific stars that they called the judges of the universe. Think about that. A pre-existing concept of 24 celestial judges, which is a perfect parallel to what John sees in Revelation, a divine courtroom getting ready to bring justice to the world.
Okay, let's take a breath and put all these pieces together. We've got 3 incredible layers, and they all combine to give us this rich, high-definition picture of who the 24 elders really are. So layer 1, at their core, they are the supernatural members of God's divine council. Layer 2, they also represent the amazing destiny of believers who are going to join that very council. And layer 3, they are powerful symbols drawn from the stars themselves, showing God's total control over time, history, and the entire cosmos. You see how these ideas don't fight each other? They build on each other. They're not contradictory, they're complementary. And together, they give us this breathtaking picture of God's absolute sovereign control and the incredible future He has planned for His people. And that really leaves us with one final big question for you to think about. This vision of the 24 elders, it isn't just some abstract biblical puzzle. It's an invitation to see our own lives, to see our sometimes chaotic world from a completely different perspective, from the view of God's unshakable throne room, where He is in complete control and where true justice will, in the end, prevail.